Our next topic for this week is views, and this is the fifth step in our physical database design methodology, following on from indexes. So, what is a view, first of all? A view is a dynamic result of querying some base relation or relations, either a table or a join from a few different tables, to produce another relation that's made up of the results of that query. So you can kind of think of it as a virtual table. It doesn't really exist in the database, but it can be produced at the time that the view is requested. You could kind of think of it as a sort of a pre-prepared select statement. But there's, I suppose, a little bit more to it. There's other reasons why you might want to use views as well, which we'll get into in a minute. A couple of reasons then to use views. So one is to simplify complex queries, at least from the end user's perspective. In the background, I suppose it's the same to the DBMS, whether it's a select statement that's not a view or if it is a view. But from the end user's perspective, it can certainly make things look a lot simpler. And we'll see an example of that in a second. And also for security reasons. So we might want to show our end users only the parts of a table or tables that are relevant to them and hide parts that they either don't need to see or maybe shouldn't be able to see for security reasons. So the first of those scenarios, to simplify a complex query. The query that we have here is a select statement that finds all of the books, this is in our library example here, all of the books that haven't been returned yet. So for that, we're bringing together information from a few different tables. We've got the first name and the last name coming from the student table. We have the title, which I think is coming from the book table, and date out, which is coming from the loan table. So we're combining, like I said, lots of information from a few different tables there together. It looks complex enough here where we can see like that there's a few joins happening, joining book copy, loan, book, and student all together to get all that information. And we also have some criteria here as well to say date back is null. So in other words, books that haven't been returned yet. So this query could look quite complex to an end user. But here we've created it as a view. The syntax for creating a view is, like you see here, create view, then the name that we want to give the view, which is overdue details in this case, and then the keyword as, followed by whatever select statement we want to use. This select statement here could be, anything, I suppose, like what you've learned so far. So it can combine, all the different types of select statements that you've seen so far can go there. From an end user's point of view, then, rather than seeing a query that has all these complicated looking joins in it, the end user would essentially be able to just do a select from overdue details. Overdue details now, even though it's a view, it's going to act like a table to anyone using the database. It's much simpler then to select from. For example, select just star or all from overdue details will return the same result set as this query here, which again looks a lot more complex. So that's kind of one of the reasons why we might want to use views, is to kind of hide the complexity, I suppose, of what's actually going on in terms of how the information is stored. And also they can be used for security. So we might have information in our tables where, some of it is relevant to a particular user and some of it isn't. We'll look next week a little bit at privileges and how we can assign privileges to different users. So let's say, I'm trying to think now with our books, we might have something like, only librarians are able to update books, but anyone is able to view a book, which makes sense. So we can do things like that, but those usually act on a whole table. So we're kind of, allowing the person to update the book table or not. We're not kind of specifying maybe which fields in the book table they're able to see and that kind of thing. So yeah, so views can be useful for that. So in this example here, we're imagining that we have someone who's a year 1 tutor. Let me just jump over to the student table actually for a second, just so you can see what's in there. The full information that's in there is student ID, first name, last name, address, their course, and the year of the course. So let's imagine that we have, year 1 tutors in our library, or tutors for different years of the course. And we want the tutors to be able to see a list of all of the students on their course. But we maybe just want them to be able to see just the year that's relevant to them, and the address part maybe is not necessary. We don't need these tutors to know the students' addresses, and maybe we don't want them to for, GDPR reasons. So we might choose to hide the columns or the fields in the table that aren't relevant to them, and possibly the rows as well. So again, if you're a year 1 tutor, you don't need to see year 2 or year 3 students. So here we're creating a view called year 1 tutor, and we're selecting student ID, the name, the course, and the year from the student table where the year is 1. So that's going to show us all first years, but just their name and their ID, course, and year, not the address. So then I suppose if we're given access to a particular user, we can make sure they only have access to this year 1 tutor view and not to the student table, which contains all the other information that we don't want them to see. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense so far about, what views are and why we would want to use them. You'll get to try out a couple of examples yourselves in the lab as well. But also a couple of other things with views. One is that they are updatable as well as queryable. So yeah, you can use insert, update and delete statements on them just like you can with any other table, with a regular table. So for example here, and again, I'm actually just going to jump back to my SQL Workbench and let's have a look at this here. So in this case, we have a view called price details. And the view itself is consisting of the ISBN, title, category, and price in the book table, but only for computing books. So let me just create that if I haven't done it already. Okay, yeah, so that creates that view. In this case, I suppose it's a way to narrow down the information that's in the book table. I'm just going to select from the book table as well, actually, so you can see the difference there. Sorry, let me just open it up in another tab. Okay, so this is the full information for the book table: ISBN, title, publisher, published date, category, and price as well. And here then with our price details view, we only want to see the price, the title, and the category, as well as ISBN, and only for computing books. So it's a subset again of the information that's in the book table. Whatever reason we're doing that for, I don't think we have a good reason in this case. It's just an example. But yeah, okay. So like I said, then views are updatable. So we can update the results that have been returned as part of that price details view. And it will also update the records in the base table as well. So when I update a record that's come up in price details, it will also update the book in its original table. Let me just show you the prices of a couple of books here so that we know when they've actually, changed correctly. For example, our first book here, JavaScript, the current price is $51.90. So yeah, we're going to update that now. So this statement here is going to update the price details view setting the price for all of the books that have been returned in that view to be a 10% increase. So price multiplied by 1.1. 6 rows affected. Sorry, I see a little warning here, but I think it's done it. Yeah, okay. I think it has done it. Anyway, let's see. We'll select again everything from the view. And yeah, we can see here that it has updated the prices. Let me make that a little bit bigger just in case you can't see it. Yeah, so the price is $57.09 now for that first book on JavaScript. I think the warning is probably about the fact that it set all of those prices to be 2 decimal places. You'll probably see this yourself in the lab as well. Data truncated, yeah, I'm guessing it just cut off any decimal places that went beyond 2 decimal places. But yeah, it's done it effectively anyway. And the last thing I just wanted to show you here is, again, that those updates will have also been done in the base table. So as well as updating the view, you can see here I've just done a select from the book table, and the price has changed there as well to $57.09. So yeah, so that's an example of how views can be updated. Like I said, we can do inserts, updates, and deletes all from a view. However, sometimes that can cause issues. So like in this example, in our view, we were just looking at computing books. You might expect that by default, then it's going to stop me from, like, through that view, from updating a book that's not a computing book. But actually it won't, by default, it won't stop me from doing that. We might be creating these views to, make sure that people only have access to the things that they should be seeing. So maybe people who only need to see or update computing books can only update those books. But if somebody knows that there's another category and, they can write a statement like this, they can still update the view, even though that particular record isn't visible in their view. Hopefully that makes sense. And we'll see an example here now. But we can use the with check option to make sure that we're only doing updates from a view that would actually be part of that view. So for example, hopefully you can see that there. If I did try to do, one second, let me switch over here to this, and I'll actually just copy that in so we can see that update in action. Or say see it in action, obviously we should see it not working. That's what we're hoping for. Okay, and I'm just going to add into the view definition here with the keywords with check option. Okay, and run that again. So that should update that view. Okay, and yeah, so now I'm going to try and insert into that view a book that doesn't really belong here, I guess, because the view is only about computing books. So in theory, I shouldn't be able to do anything with any books that aren't computing books. So this one is a life science book, and I shouldn't be able to make an update to that through my price details view, which again is only for computing. So yeah, if I run this, I should now see an error message. Again, I'll zoom in on this because I'm guessing it's probably quite small there at the bottom of the screen. You can see here we've got an error code that says, there we go, check option failed, library price dot details. Okay, so in other words, it won't let it go ahead because it doesn't, it's something, I suppose, that's beyond the scope of this particular view. Okay, and yeah, I should have showed you that first, of course, without this check option thing here. But if I didn't have the with check option there, that would work. be able to insert stuff into the view, even though the things I'm inserting are not going to be visible in the view in the end. Okay, so yeah, in the lab then for views, you'll see a few different examples to try out and a couple using this with check option as well.